My parents always chose my golden brother over me, until one accusation went too far and everything quietly shifted. Hi, I'm Evan, I'm 14, and the first time I understood that my family didn't actually see me happened on a Tuesday afternoon that smelled like burnt coffee and bad decisions. I grew up in a quiet neighborhood outside Columbus, Ohio, the kind with trimmed lawns and identical mailboxes. From the outside, my family looked perfect. Inside, everything revolved around my older brother Caleb. Caleb was 18. Star quarterback. Honor roll. Teachers called him future material. Coaches shook my dad's hand like they were already thanking him for producing greatness. My mom framed Caleb's certificates and lined them along the hallway like museum exhibits. If someone visited our house for the first time, they could tell you everything about Caleb within 5 minutes. Me? I was the extra chair at the table. I wasn't bad. I wasn't great. I got decent grades. I stayed out of trouble. I liked drawing, fixing old electronics, and keeping my head down. And that was my real crime. I was quiet. I didn't demand attention. So I didn't get any. My dad worked in finance. My mom managed a small online boutique from home. Stress lived in our walls, but it only ever spilled out on me. If something went missing, I was the first suspect. If someone messed up, I was the safest person to blame. Caleb could do no wrong. If he did something questionable, there was always a reason. A justification. An excuse that somehow made him the victim. By 14, I'd learned the rules. Don't argue. Don't complain. Don't expect fairness. I told myself it didn't hurt. I had my sketchbook, my cheap laptop, and the occasional weekend at my uncle's place where no one compared me to anyone else. But that Tuesday? That's when the illusion finally cracked. I came home from summer school to find my mom standing in the kitchen, red-faced, holding her phone like it was evidence in a trial. My dad stood beside her, arms crossed. Caleb sat at the counter, spinning a car key and smiling like he already knew the verdict. "What is this, Evan?" my mom snapped, shoving the screen toward me. "A charge. $247.89. Electronics store across town." My stomach dropped. "I didn't." "Don't lie," Caleb cut in smoothly. "I saw you browsing gaming stuff last week. That was it. No questions. No discussion." The sentence was already decided. I watched their faces harden, watched my dad sigh like he was disappointed but not surprised, watched my mom nod like this fit perfectly into a story she'd already written about me. And standing there, barefoot on the kitchen tile, I realized something terrifying. They weren't trying to find the truth. They were trying to protect the version of reality where Caleb stayed golden and I stayed convenient. That was the moment I stopped believing things would ever even out. And that was the moment I started paying attention. By that evening, I was officially grounded for the rest of the summer. No laptop. No phone. No leaving the house unless someone escorted me like I was on parole. My dad confiscated my charger like it was contraband. My mom told me I should use this time to reflect. Reflect on what, exactly, I still don't know. Caleb walked past my room that night whistling, the same smug tune he used after winning games. He paused just long enough to lean in and whisper, "Hope it was worth it." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat on my bed staring at the wall, feeling something inside me go very still. The worst part wasn't the punishment. It was how normal everything felt to them afterward. Dinner happened. Dishes clinked. My parents talked about Caleb's upcoming campus visit like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just been publicly declared guilty without a trial. For 3 days, I barely left my room. Then my uncle Mark came over. Mark was my dad's younger brother, and the only adult in my family who treated me like a person instead of a footnote. He worked in IT, swore too much, laughed too loud, and asked questions most people avoided. When he saw me sitting on the stairs, grounded and silent, he frowned. "What did you do?" he asked. "Hack the Pentagon?" I shrugged. My mom launched into the story. The charge. The missing card. How disappointed they were. How this behavior worried them. Caleb sat quietly, hands folded, playing the role of the responsible son so well it almost impressed me. Mark didn't look convinced. "What store was it?" he asked. "Tech Square," my mom said. "Downtown." Mark nodded slowly. "You still have the statement?" My dad handed it over. Mark studied it longer than anyone else had. Then he tilted his head. "Huh. That's weird." My mom stiffened. "What is?" "The timestamp," he said. "This charge went through at 4:12 p.m. Tuesday. So Evan was at summer school until 5. Mark replied calmly. "And Caleb was home early. Practice got cancelled, right?" The room went quiet. Caleb shifted. "That doesn't prove anything." Mark smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "No. But security cameras might." My mom crossed her arms. "You're not seriously suggesting?" "I'm suggesting nothing," Mark said, already pulling out his phone. "I'm just curious." He didn't stay long after that. But before he left, he caught my eye and gave me a look I hadn't seen from an adult in a long time. Belief. The next morning, Mark came back unannounced. He didn't knock. He walked straight into the kitchen holding a folder and a tablet. "Morning," he said casually. "We need to talk." Caleb wasn't there. That was the first red flag. Mark placed the tablet on the kitchen table like he was laying down evidence in a courtroom. "I called Tech Square," he said calmly. "They have security cameras at every register. Footage is stored for at least 10 days. My mom let out a short, nervous laugh. "Why would you even do that?" "Because someone used a stolen credit card," Mark replied, tapping the screen. "And someone else took the fall for it." My dad leaned forward. "Mark, this is unnecessary." Mark didn't argue. He just pressed play. The video was clear. Painfully clear. Date. Time. Register number. Everything visible. Caleb stood at the counter in his varsity jacket, relaxed, smiling at the cashier. He slid my dad's credit card across the counter like it was his own. A few minutes later, he walked out with a bag full of electronics and a drink in his hand, completely at ease. The kitchen went silent. My mom's mouth opened, then closed. She stared at the screen like it was lying to her. My dad didn't move. He just watched, shoulders slowly sinking, like the weight of it was finally pressing down. "And before anyone asks," Mark said quietly, "the timestamp matches the charge exactly." That's when I noticed something else. Caleb wasn't in the house. My mom's voice came out thin. "Where is Caleb?" No one answered. I waited. For an apology. For someone to say my name. For someone to admit they were wrong. Instead, my dad exhaled slowly. "We'll deal with this." Mark looked at him, stunned. "Deal with what?" My mom rubbed her temples. "This is a lot right now." Mark turned toward them, disbelief written all over his face. "Your younger son was accused, punished, and isolated. And you don't have anything to say to him?" I finally spoke, my voice steady. "So, am I still grounded?" My mom winced. "We'll talk about it later." Later. Like it was a scheduling issue. Like my trust hadn't already been broken. Nothing changed after the truth came out. That was the part that hurt the most. There was no family meeting. No apology. No official ungrounding. Caleb didn't come home that night, and when he did the next afternoon, no one confronted him. He walked in like nothing had happened, tossed his keys on the counter, grabbed food from the fridge, and went upstairs. Untouchable. I waited for consequences. They never came. The only difference was the silence. A thick, uncomfortable quiet that settled over the house like dust after something broke. My parents avoided eye contact with me. Not out of guilt, but out of inconvenience. I reminded them of something they didn't want to face. Caleb, on the other hand, acted victorious. He didn't tease me openly anymore. He didn't need to. Every time he passed me in the hallway, he smiled just enough to let me know he'd won anyway. The next morning, I overheard my parents talking in the kitchen. "We can't make this a big deal," my mom whispered. "If the school finds out." "They won't," she cut in quickly. "We handled it. Mark won't say anything. He's family." I stood frozen at the top of the stairs. They weren't protecting me. They were protecting him. That was the moment something inside me shut off. Not snapped. Not exploded. Just went quiet. I stopped trying to explain myself. I stopped hoping they'd suddenly see me differently. Instead, I started watching. Listening. Learning. I noticed patterns. How bills were paid. Where documents were kept. What Caleb lied about and how easily it worked. What my parents ignored when it was inconvenient. I started keeping a notebook. Not a diary. A log. Dates. Quotes. Screenshots. Times. Small details that didn't mean much on their own but formed something bigger when stacked together. By the time school started again in late August, I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. Caleb told his version of the headset story before I ever got the chance to speak. According to him, he'd taken the blame to protect me. Teachers nodded sympathetically. Friends looked at me differently. Some stopped talking to me altogether. And once again, I stayed quiet. Because I was done reacting. I was preparing. By September, I had mastered the art of being invisible. At home, I moved quietly. I did what I was told. I stayed out of the way. My parents seemed relieved by it, like silence from me meant everything was finally back under control. Caleb thrived in that space. Captain of the team. New car. Talk of scholarships at dinner like it was already guaranteed. At school, I watched from the edges. Caleb lied constantly. Not big dramatic lies, small, confident ones. The kind people believed because they wanted to. He bragged about cheating on quizzes. About teachers who owed him favors. About people he could push around because no one would call him out. I didn't correct him. I collected. Then one afternoon, I heard something I wasn't supposed to. I was passing the garage when I heard Caleb's voice through the side door. He was on the phone pacing. "No, don't send it to Mom's account again," he muttered. "Use Paylink. She checks the other one." Pause. "Yeah, I've got the rest. I'll bring it Friday. Before practice." My stomach dropped. When he hung up and left, I waited. Then I went into the garage. There was a locked drawer on my dad's old workbench. I'd seen Caleb open it before. He kept the key taped under his desk drawer upstairs. That night, when the house was asleep, I took the key. Inside the drawer were two small bags. One filled with cash. The other with pills. I didn't touch them. I didn't take photos yet. I just stared long enough to understand what I was seeing. Caleb wasn't just lying anymore. He was dealing. I put everything back exactly how I found it. Locked the drawer. Returned the key. Then I went to my room and added a new section to my notebook. I marked it with a red tab. From that moment on, this wasn't about clearing my name. It was about building a case. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Everything about Caleb started to make sense. The money. The late nights. The confidence. The way he talked like consequences were something that happened to other people. I became careful. Precise. I waited for moments when no one was home. I took photos of the drawer. Screenshots of messages when he left his phone unattended. I recorded dates and times. I learned how to check metadata, how to back things up, how to make sure nothing could be erased if my laptop disappeared one day. I saved everything on a flash drive and labeled it archive. School started cracking too. A girl named Lena stopped me after class one day. Quiet voice. Nervous hands. "Did Caleb ever ask you to help him with homework?" I looked at her. "Why?" She swallowed. "He made me write a history paper for him." promised to tutor me for math. Then he told people I was obsessed with him. That night, I added her messages to the folder. More followed. A kid he threatened. A teammate he blackmailed. A teacher's assistant who admitted Caleb had been caught plagiarizing once, but the administration didn't want to risk his athletic future. The file doubled. Then tripled. Meanwhile, my parents framed a university brochure in the hallway. Caleb's future school. His next chapter. That was when I understood the pressure point. The scholarship. If that disappeared, everything they'd built around him would collapse. I drafted an email. Polite. Professional. Calm. Attached only what couldn't be denied. No names. No drama. Just facts. I didn't send it yet. I waited. Because timing matters. October came fast. Caleb started unraveling before I even touched anything. He grew paranoid. Snapped at people. Checked his phone constantly. One afternoon, he cornered me in my room, eyes bloodshot, voice low. "You've been talking," he said. I didn't sit up. Didn't argue. "About what?" "Don't play stupid," he snapped. "Lena. Marcus. Half the team's acting weird." I met his eyes. Calm. Silent. That scared him more than yelling ever could. "You think anyone's going to believe you over me?" he said. "You're nothing. Always have been." I stood up slowly. Not aggressive. Just enough. "You're scared," I said. He froze. For the first time. I continued. "You don't control the story." He left without another word. 2 days later, I sent the email. Athletics Department. Admissions Office. Compliance Board. Then I dropped anonymous USB drives into 3 teacher mailboxes, the counselor's inbox, and the principal's tip box. At lunch, someone posted a link in the school forum. "This is who you've been protecting." By the end of the day, the halls buzzed. Screenshots flew. Teachers whispered. Coaches avoided eye contact. Caleb didn't come to school the next morning. Neither did I. At home, I listened as my dad's phone rang. Once. Twice. Then again. His voice shifted from confused, to sharp, to quiet. When he called Caleb downstairs, I stayed in my room. I didn't need to hear the yelling. The truth was already louder. The house felt wrong after that. Not loud. Not angry. Just hollow. Caleb stayed in his room for 2 days straight. My mom kept cleaning things that were already clean. My dad walked around like someone had unplugged him. No one asked me anything. No one accused me either. That silence was new. On the 3rd day, my dad finally spoke to me. Not yelled. Not blamed. "Sit down," he said at the kitchen table. I did. "They called," he said slowly. "The school. The university. The athletic board." He didn't look at me when he said it. "They're investigating everything." I nodded. "They said the evidence was extensive." Still, I said nothing. Then he finally looked up. Really looked at me. Like he was seeing me for the first time and didn't like what that realization said about him. "You didn't make this up," he said. "No," I replied. Another pause. Longer this time. "We failed you." The words landed heavy. Not healing. Not enough. But real. Caleb lost the scholarship that afternoon. Official email. 1 sentence. Polite. Cold. Final. My mom cried when she read it. Not because of what Caleb had done, but because of what he lost. That told me everything. That night, Caleb slipped an envelope under my door. Inside was one of my old drawings. Something I'd made years ago and forgotten about. On the back, a single sentence written in his handwriting. "You always noticed things I didn't." It wasn't an apology. But it was the first time he admitted I existed. Caleb didn't go back to school. Officially, he was on leave. Unofficially, everyone knew what that meant. His name disappeared from the team roster. His locker was cleared out quietly, early in the morning, before anyone could take pictures. At home, my parents moved like they were afraid of making noise. My mom tried to apologize. Not all at once. In fragments. Half sentences and quiet tears in the kitchen when she thought I wasn't listening. She kept saying things like, "I just didn't want to believe," and "We thought we were protecting the family." I didn't argue with her. Because the truth was simple. They had protected the idea of Caleb, not the people in the house. My dad changed more than she did. He stopped talking about potential and legacy. He started asking me about school. About what I liked. It felt awkward, like learning a language too late, but I let him try. One evening, he handed me an envelope. Inside was a check. Not a bribe. Not hush money. An attempt. "For classes," he said. "Art. Design. Whatever you want to build." I took it. Not because it fixed anything. But because for once, the investment wasn't in my brother. Caleb packed in December. Boarding program out of state. My parents said it was a fresh start. He didn't say goodbye. But the night before he left, he paused outside my room. "You were always paying attention," he said quietly. "I should have been scared sooner." Then he walked away. And for the first time in my life, the house felt balanced. A year passed. I was 15 by then, and the house no longer revolved around silence or fear. It wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was honest in a way it had never been before. I kept drawing. What started as a way to disappear turned into a way to exist. I took online design classes. Built a small portfolio under a fake name at first, then my own. Sold my first commission to someone who had no idea who my family was, who didn't care about football or scholarships or legacy. They just liked my work. That mattered more than anything. At school, people treated me differently. Not like a hero. Not like a villain. Just like someone who knew himself. The rumors faded. The story settled. What stayed was the truth. I stayed close with Lena. Not romantic. Just real. The kind of friend who understands what it means to be used and still choose not to become bitter. My dad came to one of my art showcases. He stood quietly in the back, didn't interrupt, didn't brag. When it was over, he hugged me and said, "I see you." I believed him. I heard once that power looks loud from the outside, but feels quiet when you finally have it. That turned out to be true. I didn't win by destroying my brother. I didn't win by forcing my parents to love me. I won by refusing to stay invisible. Caleb sent one message months later. Just 3 words. "You were right." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because the thing I wanted all along was never revenge. It was to be heard. And finally, I was.